Which
looks like we have people joining on. So welcome everyone to today's webinar hosted by Caring.com with our special guest, Ben Rayo from Mom's House. Mom's House is one of a handful of companies that Caring works with when a senior or their loved one indicates to one of our family advisors that they have a house to sell as a part of their transition to a senior living community. And as many of you know, this is a process that often falls to the families rather than the seniors themselves. So today we have Ben Rayo from Mom's House here to share his expertise on that process and walk you through the misconceptions that many families face when it comes to selling a home. As we begin, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping items for today's webinar. This is a one-way webcast, meaning only the presenters from Caring and Mom's House will have video and audio throughout today's presentation. However, we'd still love to hear from you. At any point throughout the webinar, please submit your questions using the Q&A section within Zoom. We will be answering these questions live following the end of the presentation. And one of the most common questions that we get is, will this webinar be recorded? And the answer is yes, we are recording, and we will send out that recording as well as the slides over the next couple of days. So first, let's kick it off with some introductions. My name is Olivia Duke. I'm the Director of B2B Marketing here at Caring, and I'm serving as the moderator for today's presentation. So more importantly, we are pleased to have Ben Rayo, one of the co-founders of Mom's House, joining us to share his expertise. And Ben, I'll let you introduce yourself to the group.
Yeah, thank you, Olivia. We're really excited to be here and to share this information. It's we've got a passion for helping families all over the country, and the misconceptions we'll talk about today are really well known through both the family and the senior living industry. So we can't wait to help kind of debunk some of that and maybe help them be a little more successful helping families get moved in. You know, from my background, I grew up, my mother was in senior living. I grew up around senior living when I was a small kid, and there was no school. I was going to the basement to an activity center to hang out and delivering mail and walking all over what was a nursing home then, and sitting on residents' laps and wheelchairs and spreading much more happiness than I could have ever imagined. I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. I live in Kansas City, Missouri now. And I've been involved in senior living. I wrote an Amazon best-selling book called Paying for Long-Term Care a few years ago. We've gotten that in the hands of over 10,000 families to help them have a roadmap and understand, you know, what's really happening at that flashpoint or transition when the family realizes that mom needs more care, and how do we get her there safely. I've been involved in real estate and real estate investment for over 15 years. As an investor, not as an agent representing somebody else, but actually buying houses, fixing them, flipping them. I have rental properties, so I've been really involved. And so I'm excited to share what we've been building with Mom's House over the last 3+ years.
Absolutely, that's great. And you hear about a lot of background in senior living from folks, but from school age, that's awesome. That's wonderful.
I didn't even know it then.
Definitely at your core. Well, great. So we're excited to have Ben here today. And of course, this webinar is brought to you by Caring.com. Now, for anyone joining who may be less familiar with Caring, Caring is a leading online resource for senior living and senior care. Our organization, was founded for caregivers by caregivers. So our flagship website, Caring.com, was created and launched in 2007 to equip those family caregivers to make better decisions, save time and money, and feel less alone and less stressed when it comes to providing senior care for their loved ones. Today, we have a portfolio of websites and referral services that millions of seniors use to research senior living, and thousands of senior living communities partner with Caring to reach their target audience who is actively looking online for senior care. One of the many reasons that care seekers turn to Caring.com is for our high integrity reviews program. We have over 350,000 reviews, with 50,000 reviews added in 2021 alone. And as I mentioned, we are very excited to have Mom's House here today to share insights. Ben, can you tell us a little bit more about Mom's House?
Yeah, you know, at a high level, what we're doing is we've got a large nationwide network of what we call senior transition specialists. So we have over 1,000 of those that we've trained to be empathetic and understand what's going on at that transition point when a family has a loved one moving into senior living. Between my partner and I, Philip, we've got decades of experience in real estate investment and more than 10 years experience, helping families in senior living. There's no fees about anything that we do at Mom's House to the care community, and there's no fees to the family. So it's a great win-win for everybody that's involved. And one of the things that we found over the years, which was very paralyzing for the families, was what do we do with the stuff? We know the house and the stuff are two really big things. And so we also have some solutions and resources that we can bring in to help with the stuff.
Great. So that really kind of segues well into the topic we have today. And that is, the misconceptions that families have. And so how can we all kind of put ourselves in their shoes and go through this process? So Ben, at this point, I'm going to give controls over to you. And
Ooh, scary.
I'm excited to kind of walk through it. All right.
Yeah.
All right. You should have access now.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Olivia. So the typical story is mom has something happen and the family gets the news that mom needs to transition into some kind of a higher level of care, whether that's assisted living, memory care, skilled nursing, whatever that is. And many times the adult children aren't prepared for the conversation. They haven't had them. They don't know anything about the senior living industry. And so they're struggling and they're frustrated. And sometimes there's so many things coming at them, they do get a little bit paralyzed. Then they find out how much it's going to cost monthly for mom to move into senior living. Many times mom doesn't have a lot of assets or cash, but what mom does have is the house. And so that's what we're talking about today. Sorry, Olivia, I'm not able to get that to advance. It was advancing.
Give it a try now. There we go.
Okay. Okay. And so that many times the house is how mom is going to pay for care. And that money needs to go and last for long enough for mom to be able to have her care. It's not a position that all of the siblings are worried about who's going to get what money. They're all surrounded around how do we get mom to the best level of care. And so it's a very different dynamic. The first big piece as far as related to the house is that the family thinks that it's going to be easy to organize everybody together, right? On average, the family lives over 400 miles away, many times having to coordinate schedules, come in from out of town, stop things in their regular life. And they think they're all going to show up on one weekend and figure everything out, which we all know. I see you smiling, Olivia. We all know that is just not going to happen. And if they come in for a weekend and they assess what's going on, maybe some visits to some care communities, and they realize that they've got a really big project on their hands because they've got this house, they've got to make some decisions about care, and they have to figure out what are they going to do with all these things. And they get organized and all come in for a weekend, and then they all open up a photo album. And in that photo album, they start looking through and remember all these amazing memories they had with mom and growing up in that house and doing that, and they lose 3 hours. And then now it's time we're going to get the house cleaned out, or I've heard families talk about, we're all going to show up on the weekend and we're going to just paint the house because they got 3 bids from contractors and they didn't like any of those bids and it was expensive. So making those big decisions remotely is something that they think is going to be easy, but once they kind of get into the groove and start realizing there's a lot more to this, they start to understand, ooh, maybe this isn't going to be as easy, especially organizing it. I talk about in my book, my stepfather, Tom, got very sick very quickly, and I was driving back and forth 8 hours every weekend from Kansas City to Louisville, Kentucky. And so I was doing that every weekend. And then we went from having home health care to moving him into assisted living, but we tried to keep Tom at home because nobody wants to leave that forever home. But I realized very quickly this was going to be tough to organize because I was pretty far away. Oh yeah, this is a good one. It's easy to figure out to do with all the stuff. Again, we get back to the story of we're all going to show up on weekend and we're going to clean it out. And we're looking through items, we're talking about memories, thing gets stretched out, and we break for lunch on that first Saturday when we all came in and realized we haven't even gotten through a couple of the rooms yet. And that doesn't include the attic and the basement and the garage and the shed and all the other things that are there. And then the other piece in the dynamic for the family is mom thinks all the kids are just going to take the stuff. The kids are like, Mom, I don't really want the stuff, right? I don't want the china. I don't have any place to store it. And I want china that can go into my dishwasher. And, they've bought their plates from Target or IKEA or somewhere, so they can, have plates that can go in the dishwasher. And so mom has a piano that she's had forever, right? And the family's like, Mom bought that piano for $5,000. I don't know how much the piano's worth, but what I can say is there's 50 free pianos on Craigslist that are out there because it's difficult to move those things. And so all these things, as far as the stuff, there's stuff we don't want. There's stuff that's big and it's hard to deal with. And then there's stuff that's just stuff. After the heirlooms and the stuff that's valuable, whether you have an estate sale or anything else, there's just a lot of stuff left over. And so it becomes much more overwhelming. And many times this is slowing families down from moving into senior living. This is a really big challenge because for the last 40 years, senior living has always said, family, find a real estate agent to go help. And they don't realize that they're putting a lot of stress barriers on the family that could be slowing them down from moving in. So let me walk you through. The family thinks a timeline to sell the house is going to be really quick. And nothing goes as fast as we want. I don't know if anybody else has ever done a project that they thought they were going to do in one weekend, but many times I've had a project I was going to do over the weekend and I didn't get it done, and it takes multiple weekends. That's kind of what the family's dealing with. So when the real estate agent shows up, the first thing they say is, hey, clean all this stuff out. We got to get all this stuff cleaned out so we can show the house. And then they say, if you fix up these 2 or 3 things, you can get top dollar. Meaning say, oh, if you put a new roof on it, and if you put new appliances in, or you put new flooring in, or had it painted, all of those things are going to increase the value of the property. And so now the family has a rehab project that they're doing. And I've been doing rehabs for 15 years, and I've never been on time and I've never been on budget. And so to have that family have to go through getting multiple bids and then making sure, the real estate market has been really hot and it's cooled down a lot just in the last 90 days. So to find a good contractor, anybody that's available right now may not be a good contractor. So we've got a dynamic of people giving deposits to contractors, and those contractors aren't showing up, or they've disappeared with their money. So there's a lot of complications with that. But let's get, they hire the contractor, the contractor does the work, the repairs are done, now it's ready for photos, and it's ready to do the showings, the listing, and then we have the property closes and it gets sold. And then at that point, the family has to pay commissions and closing costs. So if the family's selling a house that's $300,000, that could be $20,000 in closing costs and another $20,000 in commissions and another $2,000 or $3,000 in closing costs. So all of those things take much longer than expected. All of those different steps I described are adding more stress to the family, but what they're also doing is slowing down your families from getting mom into care quickly. It's there. Yeah, number 4. Oh, this is my favorite. This is my favorite one. Okay, so most people think that renovations are a good return on investment. And so this is where we talked about in the previous slide where the family is doing some things to the house to maximize their value. So there's this cost versus value guide. And if you go to costversusvalue.com, don't go right now though, costversusvalue.com, you'll be able to put your own city in, and it's really fascinating because what we're seeing is that with inflation pressure that we have now in the trends in remodeling, it has been normally that for every dollar that somebody puts into a house to remodel it, it's only adding 65 cents of value. So what that means is that the family spends $10,000 to fix the house up, they're really only gaining $6,500 in value, or they're losing $3,500. The example I have below is if they were going to do some typical things, fix a deck, replace a roof, remodel a bathroom, replace some windows. They do all that, and if they spent $75,000 to do that, they only added $50,000 of value. That means the family lost $25,000. Now, this may or may not be an extreme example because there's a lot of families that are putting money in, but this scales, and you can go see what it's like where you live at costversusvalue.com. They've been doing this for 20 years. It's fascinating data and what they've aggregated, but the families don't know. They're listening to maybe a real estate professional or agent that says, go fix up these things and we can get top dollar. Well, sometimes, as you know, families could be borrowing money. Who's going to put the money in? What's really happening with the family? Does the person that puts the money in, do they get a return on their money to fix up mom's house, one of the adult children? So there's a lot of things that add stress to, but it's a misconception that putting money into the house increases the value at the same percentage. They're actually losing money. It's only a few months to rehab a property. I talked a little bit about inflation and material costs, which is why that in that previous slide that the values have started to drop closer to 50%. So every $10,000 you put in, you're only getting $5,000 or $5,500 of value in what you spent the money on. But this contractor and the reliability is really a problem. People are getting ripped off. People are getting taken advantage of. People don't understand to not give a contractor 50% down. And now families have given them money and they're not showing up, or they're showing up late, or they say on their bid, it's going to take 4 weeks to do the project. It ends up taking 8 to 10 weeks. All these things all create complications and stress for the family. And the family doesn't know any better because they're not professional rehabbers. They're taking whatever they're meeting with those contractors at face value. And I just know, having the experience of rehabbing lots of properties, never on budget, never on time. This is an interesting one. Bridge loans are the only option to get mom money quickly from the house to pay for care. I'm not totally against bridge loans, and I think they have their place and they're a good fit for certain situations. But when we look at the previous slide, or two slides ago, on that cost versus value, what we have found is many of these families are using bridge loans to either get mom moved in right away, but they're taking some of that money to fix up the house as well, thinking that they're going to add that additional value. And so by the time that you have interest rates and you have maybe some closing costs and other things to borrow this money, there's other options that could get mom moved in and with a lot less stress to get them moved into senior living right away. So when we look at what we do at mom's house and the option to get mom then moved right away and eliminate a lot of those steps, that left column is the retail value. So that's what the house is worth today if it were all fixed up. The family has expenses, or they have money out of pocket to go in and rehab the property, pay commissions and closing costs, pay taxes, insurance, possibly a mortgage, and maintain the property during that time that they're getting the house ready to sell and on the market. With mom's house, we've been able to create an experience that the family could end up at around the same place they could in a matter of 2 or 3 weeks without all of the stress of the rehab and no commissions and all those things. And so that's what we're really excited about doing for the senior living industry. You know, if you've been watching what's going on, if you've been in senior living less than 12 years, you've never experienced a down market. If you think about what happened in 2008, and families were struggling to get their houses sold, and the houses that weren't selling were the ones that needed things done to them. They needed rehab, they needed updating. The houses that were all ready for retail, those were the only ones that were selling. And so what we're seeing from all of these different companies and professionals is that we are kind of trending towards, I don't want to say a recession, it sounds a little extreme, but definitely a downturn. We've seen interest rates go up, we've seen inflation go up, and we're seeing the days on market starting to increase. I just read a report from Money Magazine last week that was talking about some of the hottest markets that have been for the last few years, and now that many of those are starting to cool down. And I want to draw the comparison here is that when the house gets harder to sell on that traditional path, it means it's going to slow down families moving in because they still have the house as a barrier to get moved in. We've made a huge investment in the senior living industry. And we're parts of many different associations. We're out presenting and speaking as experts in real estate at some of these conventions. We've done booths. You can find us at Leading Age in Denver coming up. We were just at Argentum. I'm headed out to Nick this evening in DC. We'll be at Smash, which is a marketing conference. It's in the fall and in Las Vegas. So we'll be at SLIF, the Senior Living Innovation Forum in November. So certainly look for us, look for our team. We're here, we're really invested in the senior living industry. And then we have lots of different integration partners that we've created. So if you're using CRMs like a Sherpa or Inquire or Welcome Home or Site Staff Chat or Conversion Logics and VA resources and different companies that we have connections that, so for example, I'll just talk about Sherpa as an example. Within Sherpa, you can go in and turn on a feature that then you will see a mom's house in the drop down. So then when you're in the prospect, you'll be able to click on them. And when you do, and you're working with a family, it will immediately send that to us. So when you send it to us, what's that look like? What's really happening? So I talked about in the beginning of the presentation, we have 1,000+ senior transition specialists all over the country. I'm actually in St. Louis today. We're having if I weren't so connected with all these cords, I would actually walk out with my laptop and show you what's going on in the room next to me, because the room is filled and we have our training and learning center. So we're training people to be transition specialists. We have 8 to 10 hours every month of continuing education that's over Zoom. We have an academy, but we're teaching them not about real estate. We're teaching them about senior living and what's happening with the family and the dynamics and the emotional support that's needed and the patience and empathy and the things that we need to do to be supportive of families that are going through one of the toughest milestones in their life. When that referral comes into us, we actually assign that referral to a transition specialist that can go out to meet with the family to go give them a no obligation offer to buy the house. And then any of the stuff that the family doesn't want to deal with or leave behind, we will take care of that too at no additional charge. And so that local transition specialist goes out to go be boots on the ground, meet face to face, go into the home and meet with the family to understand what's really going on and what resources they need, and how do we meet them at their level to help them with stress and what's going on with their family. And it's really fun to see that the house is really obvious, but then when we start talking about that we can help with the stuff, and we just watch the stress melt away for daughter Judy when she hears, what, you can help me with the basement that's flooded twice and all the stuff down there is wet and we don't want any of it and none of us have dealt with it and mom didn't tell us it flooded. And so that's a big piece of value that we do. So when we talked about the referral piece and how that really works and what that looks like, we're going to get that into the hands of a transition specialist that will meet with your families and they will provide some feedback, and we will work to get that back to you so you understand what's going on. Where this becomes a really great value for you as a sales and marketing professional in senior living is the ability to have a higher level conversation besides how's it going with mom, what's going on, I just wanted to check in, versus, hey, I understand that you were meeting with mom's house. How did that meeting go? Were they able to help you? I just wanted to introduce you to Mom's House as a free resource partner, for our care community that is there to provide resources. So if we see a folded up flag, we're going to ask the family, were you or your husband, in the military? Did you serve in an active war? Do you know about VA aid and attendance? And so there's going to be things like that we want to help to surround the family with the resources and make it less stressful. So when that referral comes in, we assign it to one of our transition specialists. They meet face to face. The transition specialist has the ability to buy the house and close in less than 30 days. Our record is 9 days. We've closed on a house on 9 days. It was kind of an emergency. The senior needed to get moved in. They had no family locally. We were working with the neighbor that was getting our transition specialist into the house and meeting with them. We're able to buy the house, get that senior safely out of their home into care, medication management, nutrition, the isolation or the socialization piece of where we help doing that. And the most important is how do we keep the senior safe so we can preserve and extend their life? So why refer through Mom's House? A lot of people ask, well, can I meet my transition specialist before I refer? And we will introduce you to the transition specialist, but we don't know which transition specialist to introduce you to because they buy houses depending on zip code, and some buy in certain zip codes and some buy in other zip codes. So we want to get it right for the family the first time. We already know the families are being inundated by phone calls and other people. And so that is assigning our technology is streamlining that process. Those senior transition specialists, we have them going through continuing education to provide them the right resources to make sure they're honed in and their skills are there, and they're making sure we have an ethics agreement that they sign to be, as part of our program, that they're going to do what's best for the family. They're going to do what's right. They're going to take care of the family. Right. It's part of what we've built to preserve our core values and mission at Mom's House. And then when we manage who that goes to versus having that go directly to the transition specialist, it allows us to hold them accountable, but also to make sure we're getting feedback so we can get that back to you so you know what's going on with the families. And the other thing is if you're referring families to us, if we have a family that comes into our system and they're looking for care, we are happy to refer them to you as well. So we have that happen sometimes. Many times they're coming from service providers, or care communities, and we're not going to cross-refer somebody that came in from another care community to another care community. But if they found us organically or by referral or some other process, we certainly are happy to get them referred to somebody that we're working with and we have a relationship with. So, hey, I hope I've covered a lot of this. I'm sure there's always lots of questions, Olivia. So none that we probably haven't heard. So let's do this.
Wonderful. And thank you so much, Ben, for walking through that. I think what I love about the content you shared is how relatable it was. You said I was kind of laughing along when you're talking about families going through photo albums, instead of actually getting the project done and assuming a project is going to take a weekend, when of course it never just takes a weekend. So so I love how not only we can all put ourselves in those shoes, but also it's all about eliminating that stress, kind of taking that stress away. So very excited for you to kind of walk this group through what Mom's House does. And it looks like we do have a couple questions coming in. So just to reiterate, Ben, in this process, are there any fees to the community when it comes to referring folks over to Mom's House?
No, there are no fees. There are no fees for that at all. Not to the family, not to the care community. And if you're using technology, then that just streamlines the process. There's no additional fees from any of those technology or integration partners that we have either.
Got it. Absolutely. So here's a question that came through as well. Do you have any marketing materials that senior living providers can maybe have to share and maybe print out for their prospects?
We do. So we have a pretty simple process. If you're interested in using Mom's House as a resource, We just need to have a conversation. We have a really simple referral agreement that just says, here's you're referring to us and we're referring to you, and there's no additional costs, and we're not exchanging any money or any of those things. If you have a technology, then it's kind of we just let those technology providers know and they turn it on. And then we have training materials. We do many times we're doing webinars to care communities for all of their sales and marketing people when they're getting together. We have flyers that are for the senior living industry professionals. And then we also have flyers that you can print out and include in the packets that you're giving the families. We really try to make this as turnkey and as easy. We know everybody in senior living is already stressed out about, turnover and staffing and training. And we're trying to make this as simple and as smooth as possible for both you and for the family. So yeah, we do have all those materials.
Great. And we will share some contact resources, not only at the end of this presentation, but also in our follow-up email. So if you'd like to get in touch, we'll have that information over to you. So Ben, you mentioned there are other options. There's bridge loans. There are probably other companies that offer similar help or similar processes. What would you say is the kind of biggest differentiator for Mom's House? What's something that you would say sets your company apart?
So that's a good question. So today there is not a company that does what we do. Our competition is a traditional real estate agent, which might be the right fit some of the time, right? It's really, but we are, I think our differentiator is the amount of time and care and effort that we put into our training and continuing education to sensitize the people. We attract a really unique individual. We call it somebody with the right heart condition, right? Because we're in the business of hugs and kisses. And so that's why we force everybody that goes through our training that wants to be a transition specialist has to come to St. Louis to do it live. We can't teach hugs over Zoom. And so the training that we do and the continuing education and the ethics agreements and the feedback loop that we require about what's going on are all very unique to what we do. And we are only in senior living. So we don't focus on any other industry or vertical besides senior living. And so we know it, we understand it, we train it, we teach it, we live it.
Absolutely. Yeah. At Caring, we have a similar process where, of course, we have our family advisors that go through an extensive training, but even everybody from marketing, sales across our company, we all go through that same training. I mean, it really comes down to, this is an emotional decision. So start with the emotions, start with, those conversations. And so that's fantastic that you really start with that at your core of your business. Great.
Yeah, and I think another thing I just add is that we've got a national footprint that's organized and to get together, because we know many times mom may be moving from where she lives today to a different city, or she might be considering care in her local city. So it's not uncommon for us to get a referral from somebody in Indianapolis where the house is, and mom is moving to Phoenix for care because daughter, son, somebody in the family lives in another city. And so knowing that when you refer a family to us, that they're going to be handled with the right care and empathy, and doing that, whether it's in your own city or somewhere else, is another one of those differentiators.
Absolutely.
And there are people that are out doing this. I mean, we did invent this, but what we invented was to create a service related to senior living and make it national, and really put a lot of effort in the training. There's people out there that could have local businesses or out there doing things, or they're investors, but we're building something very, very different.
And the fact that you are spanning that far and getting people in for live training, I mean, that's an investment, and shows, you're putting that first. So that's great. Well, another thing we can reiterate, because I know we'll be at some of those conferences coming up as well. So did you mention RAL, the national?
Oh yeah, we'll be at RAL too. So if you want to meet us face to face, I'll be in Washington, DC on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at the NIC conference. Leading Age will be there on Monday, which is October 17th. We'll be at the Residential Assisted Living Conference in Phoenix on September 29th and October 1st, or 29th through the 1st. Smash is I think the 4th week of October, and our team will be there. And then we will also be at the Senior Living Innovation Forum and in Nassau in the Bahamas, which is a great spot. And we'll be there, and that's the first weekend in November.
Great. And that you can also see Caring, and hopefully Ben will get to connect to those as well. We'll be at RAL in Smash coming up. So along with that, let's talk through how people can get in touch. So if you'd like to contact Mom's House based on what you've heard today, feel free to visit their website at momshouse.com/get started. You can also call this number here or email seniorlivingpro@momshouse.com. Also, Ben Rayo, and you'll see on his LinkedIn profile, Rayo like mayo. You can give him a follow or connect and see more of his insights on LinkedIn. And if
please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to send you a copy of my book as well if you want to email me. Thank you for having us on. We appreciate the partnership with Caring, and hopefully we can help all your communities that use your services.
Absolutely. And we at Caring welcome your feedback on today's presentation. And if there are any other topics that you'd like to hear from us in the future, please let us know. There will be a survey that pops up as this webinar closes, where you can let us know what you thought or anything you'd like to hear in the future, as well as by contacting the phone number and emails listed here. So to stay on top of Caring's upcoming trainings, I encourage you to follow us on LinkedIn, as well as visit our industry website, partners.caring.com. So with that, we will let you all get back to the commendable work of helping seniors. And thank you for joining us today. I hope you have a fantastic
Olivia, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, Ben. It was great to have you.
All right. Yeah, thank you.
Right.
Bye-bye.